The Indiana Fever just sent a message to the entire WNBA. Last season, they fought their way back to the playoffs for the first time in 8 years, but when they got there, reality hit hard. They were talented, but they were not ready.
Tuesday, February 4th, 2025, I am ready to proclaim the Indiana Fever as your WNBA champs.
The Connecticut Sun exposed their lack of experience, sent them home early, and made it clear that this team needed more if they wanted to compete at the highest level. Caitlin Clark knew it. After the season ended, she admitted that the team's biggest weakness was leadership and playoff experience. They had the heart, they had the talent, but when the moment got tough, they did not have the veterans who knew how to win under pressure. That changed fast. The Fever wasted no time fixing their flaws. In just 5 months, they turned a young, promising team into a legitimate championship contender. This is not the same Indiana Fever. They kept their star players, brought in veteran leaders, and built a roster that can go toe-to-toe with the best teams in the league. The moves they made this offseason did not just make them better. They shook the entire WNBA. The Fever's return to the playoffs was a big step forward, but their performance showed that just making it there was not enough. In their first playoff game, the Connecticut Sun completely dominated them. The Fever lost by 24 points, the biggest playoff blowout of the season. Indiana looked overmatched, and it was clear that the moment was too big for them. Game 2 was different. The Fever fought harder, and with less than a minute left, they had a real chance to steal the win, but when it mattered most, they choked. The pressure was too much. They missed key shots, made bad decisions, and let the game slip away. Just like that, their playoff run was over. Caitlin Clark did not sugarcoat it. After the loss, she said the team's biggest issue was lack of leadership and playoff experience. The Fever had talent, but when the pressure was on, they had no one who had been in that moment before. They needed veterans who knew how to win big games. They needed players who could calm the team down and make the right plays when everything was on the line. The Fever's front office listened, they went to work immediately, and made sure that when this team gets back to the playoffs, they will not just be happy to be there, they will be ready to compete for a championship. The Indiana Fever knew they needed to bring in new talent, but they also had to keep their best players. That is why their first big move was locking in Kelsey Mitchell with a 1-year Supermax contract. She has been one of the most consistent scorers in the WNBA for years, and losing her would have been a disaster. Some fans blamed Mitchell for the Fever's early playoff exit, but that does not change the fact that she was a huge reason they even made it there. She has finished in the top 10 in WNBA scoring for 5 straight seasons and was the team's most reliable offensive weapon before Caitlin Clark arrived. She also set a franchise record last year by scoring 20 or more points in 7 straight games.
Mitchell on the drive, splits the double team, throws the foul, gets it to go, an acrobatic.
Mitchell is not just a scorer. She is a perfect backcourt partner for Caitlin Clark. Her ability to create her own shot and attack defenses gives Clark a dangerous weapon to work with. When defenses focus on stopping Clark, Mitchell can make them pay. Together, they form one of the most explosive guard duos in the WNBA. The Fever could have let Mitchell walk and focused on rebuilding around Clark and Aaliyah Boston, but they knew her experience, scoring ability, and chemistry with Clark were too valuable to lose. Keeping her was a crucial decision, and now she has a stronger supporting cast around her than ever before. The Fever did not just keep their stars. They added one of the biggest names in the league. DeWanna Bonner is a 6-time All-Star, 2-time WNBA champion, and one of the most versatile forwards in the game. Her signing was a clear message. The Fever are not just here to compete, they are here to win. Last season, Indiana struggled on the wing. They had no true two-way threat who could consistently score and defend against elite competition. Bonner fixes that problem immediately. She brings scoring, defense, leadership, and championship experience. On offense, Bonner is a nightmare matchup. She can knock down threes, attack the basket, and score over defenders with ease. She averaged 15 points per game last season and is ranked 4th all-time in WNBA scoring. She can create her own shot, stretch the floor, and take pressure off Clark and Mitchell. Defensively, Bonner is just as dangerous. With a 7'4" wingspan, she can block shots, disrupt passing lanes, and shut down opponents. Her length and experience make her a perfect fit for Indiana's defense, which struggled at times last season. But the most important thing Bonner brings is championship experience. She has won at the highest level, and she knows what it takes to get through the toughest playoff battles. That is exactly what Caitlin Clark and this young Fever team needed. Adding Bonner instantly raises Indiana's ceiling. Last season, they were a young team with potential. Now, they are a serious contender with one of the most dangerous starting lineups in the WNBA. The Indiana Fever did not stop at DeWanna Bonner. They went out and added another champion to the mix, Natasha Howard. A three-time WNBA champion, all-star, and former Defensive Player of the Year, Howard is one of the most versatile forwards in the league. Last season, the Fever struggled in the front court when Aaliyah Boston had to carry too much of the load. They needed another strong, experienced big to take pressure off Boston and help control the paint. Howard is the perfect answer. She averaged 18 points per game last season for the Dallas Wings, proving she is still an elite scorer. Unlike traditional post players, Howard can score inside, hit mid-range jumpers, and even step out for threes. That makes her a perfect fit alongside Caitlin Clark. Clark's passing ability will allow Howard to thrive in pick and rolls, and her outside shooting will space the floor for Clark and Kelsey Mitchell to attack.
The Fever. Everybody at this company likes to pretend they like Caitlin Clark. Even
Not me.
And let me just be clear, I'm talking about Dave Portnoy.
But Howard's real value comes on the defensive end. She is a tough physical defender who can guard multiple positions. She has quick hands, great footwork, and a high basketball IQ. Whether she is protecting the rim or switching onto guards, she gives the Fever a defensive presence they desperately needed. With Howard and Bonner in the lineup, Indiana now has a front court that can dominate both ends of the floor. Boston no longer has to do it all by herself. She will have two veterans beside her who know how to win and can take the team to the next level. The Fever did not just bring in stars, they also made one of the smartest role player signings of the offseason by adding Sophie Cunningham. She is not just a shooter, she is a gritty, physical competitor who will give Indiana an edge every time she steps on the court. Cunningham is one of the best three-point shooters in the WNBA. If she is left open, she will punish defenses. That makes her an ideal floor spacer alongside Clark and Mitchell. Defenders will have to choose between helping on Clark's drives or staying glued to Cunningham. Either way, it is a problem for the defense. But what makes Cunningham even more valuable is her toughness and defense. She plays with energy, physicality, and a fearless attitude. She can guard multiple positions, fight through screens, and make life difficult for the opposing team's best players. Indiana lacked toughness and defensive intensity last season. Cunningham brings both. She is the kind of player who frustrates opponents, fires up her teammates, and makes winning plays. She might not be a superstar, but she is the exact type of role player that championship teams need. With Cunningham in the lineup, the Fever now have a true 3-and-D weapon who will bring energy and toughness every single game. And when playoff time comes, her experience and fearless mentality will be invaluable. The Fever did not stop at adding star power. They also made sure their bench got stronger by bringing in Sydney Colson and Brianna Turner. These two may not be the flashiest names, but they bring veteran leadership, defense, and depth, all things Indiana needed to improve. Colson steps in as the backup point guard after Erica Wheeler left for Seattle. She might not put up big numbers, but her role is clear. Run the offense when Caitlin Clark is resting. She brings experience, stability, and leadership to the second unit. Colson also has championship experience, winning 2 WNBA titles in her career. Having a steady hand at point guard behind Clark is crucial for a team that struggled when their star needed a breather.
And number 3 team in the league, Indiana Fever, downs them. And guess what? I'm getting rich doing it. I got the fever.
Then there is Brianna Turner, a defensive specialist who adds toughness to the front court. She is a 2-time all-defensive first-team selection and one of the best shot blockers in the league. Last season, the Fever struggled with rim protection when Aaliyah Boston was off the floor. Turner solves that problem immediately. She will help Indiana lock down the paint, grab rebounds, and bring much-needed defense off the bench. These moves might not make headlines, but every championship team needs reliable depth. Colson and Turner give the Fever 2 experienced, hardworking players who can step up when needed. 1 year ago, the Indiana Fever were a young team with potential. Now they look like a serious championship contender. They did not just add talent, they built a complete roster. They kept their core intact by re-signing Kelsey Mitchell, one of the league's top scorers. They added star power with Dewana Bonner and Natasha Howard, two experienced veterans with championship rings. They brought in toughness and shooting with Sophie Cunningham, and they strengthened their bench with Sydney Coulson and Brianna Turner. The Fever now have elite scoring, defense, leadership, and depth. They fixed their biggest weaknesses from last season: playoff experience, rim protection, and wing depth. On paper, this is a team that can compete with anyone in the WNBA. And at the center of it all, Caitlin Clark. She now has a roster around her that can take the pressure off her shoulders. She does not have to do everything by herself anymore. She has veterans who can step up in big moments and help guide the team when the stakes are high.
Thomas knocks it away. Lexi Hull has to fire, and why not? Come on!
The Fever are no longer just a team on the rise, they are a legitimate threat to win the championship, but can they actually go all the way? It will not be easy. The Las Vegas Aces and New York Liberty are still the favorites. These teams are loaded with all-stars and have more playoff experience than Indiana. But the Fever are no longer just a young team trying to compete. They are a balanced, well-built squad that can challenge the league's best. If everything clicks, the Fever have a real shot at making a deep playoff run. They now have the scoring, defense, and leadership to win tough games. If Clark takes another leap and the new additions mesh well, Indiana could be holding the trophy at the end of the season. One thing is certain, this is not the same Fever team from last year. They are stronger, smarter, and ready to prove they belong at the top. The rest of the WNBA better be ready, because Indiana is coming.